Oh, I'm talking.
Yeah,
Hi, Chris Joseph.
We're off to a rough start. Nicole Snyder.
everybody's doing great.
We're winging the first episode of 2023 of Talking Threadheads. Take
It's
it
the first
away,
episode.
Nicole.
It's not only the first episode of 2023, it's the first episode of the second half of 2022, perhaps the last 3 quarters of 2022. But hey, we're back because we love talking about Jazz Fest. We love talking about the Cubes. We're all looking forward to Fest. It's less than a month away, which is awesome. So we got the band back together. Um, Chris Joseph and I are joined by a few of the podcast favorites um, who have graciously given us their time to join us and discuss something you couldn't stop us from discussing if we tried, the Cubes and who we're going to see at Fest this year. Straight away out of the gates, this group is going to aim to just do first weekend right now, but we're also just going to kind of see what happens. We might keep going. Expect the unexpected with all of us. So, with other any other preamble, Chris, do you have anything you want to add?
I think that's all the housekeeping. If
That's
if
all the housekeeping.
if we need to go to the bathroom, are we allowed to go to the bathroom during the episode, or
Yeah,
is this
absolutely. This is
okay?
not a professional production whatsoever. You should probably just don't leave. Never mind.
Don't
All
bring the
right.
camera with you, Chris.
Yeah, just bring the camera with you.
Wait a minute,
All right, so
I'm making a
we'll
note of that.
introduce Jordan
Right, please.
first. We're joined by Jordan Hamawi, our good friend. Jordan is a music fan in the New York City, New Jersey area. I think he's well known for his outstanding music picks list that he distributes semi-regularly via email to a wide distribution list. He highlights music choices in his region, but also a lot of folks who aren't in his region use it as a resource for finding new music they want to go out and hear. So he's got a really cool email following, and it's really great that he does that in his free time just as a music fan. So I'm going to let Jordan take it away. Tell us a little bit about what your Jazz Fest style is.
Sure. So it's kind of funny. Like I started Jazz Fest, um, well, I guess it's something like 30 years ago. And I missed one because my wife and I, or my girlfriend at the time, and I couldn't afford to go that one year. And now, and we've been every year since, and we've evolved over the years with kids who grew up going to Jazz Fest. My daughter is named Nola, for example. And I'm a pretty giving person in a lot of ways. But in Jazz Fest, I'm about the most selfish person that you can be. Like if you want to talk to me or hang out with me, you got to do it while you're walking from stage to stage. I'm not stopping. I'm not waiting for you to go to the bathroom. I'll just meet you there. Like
Does that include your wife too? Are you
yes, absolutely. And she's the same way, which is beautiful. Like she's like, I'm not going to that. Well, who I hate that guy. So I'll see you somewhere. So anyway,
I
so
actually
I'm
got to
kind of like the
experience this
ultimate.
last year.
Pardon?
I got to experience that last year.
Yeah,
It was
right.
a drive-by hello.
Right. I'm very good at the drive by hello. It's and I think we're all ridiculous people because we are at a music festival with something like 12 stages, something like six acts a day on each stage, 7 or 8 days, depending on which year you're talking about, of acts. And each one is precious. And we are pissed if we miss 10 minutes of one of them because something else gets in the way. It's ridiculous. And plus, all the shows at night, there are hundreds of shows during the day, hundreds of shows at night, and the conflicts kill us, each and every one of us, I think. And I think that's what qualifies us to be on this panel.
I love it, and I totally
Amen.
agree. And yeah, that's us. All right. Well, next we have our good friend Russ Agdern. Russ is a music fan in New York City. He's to me like the passionate fan of all things like jazz, jams, New Orleans music of all kinds. And he's a uh, I think kind of a deeply spiritual person as well. So he brings that perspective to his listening, and he's also just a hell of a lot of fun to be around. So Russ, you want to tell us about what your fest life is like?
Yeah, well, I tend to start by making sure my mom sends Nicole the check for the kind words and for hanging out with me occasionally. I mean, look, I started coming in 2008, so I feel like I'm a relative rook. I feel like I'm the rookie of this awesome group of people, and my fest is like trying to balance the ridiculous stuff that Jordan was talking about with the fact that like I come with my wife and my son. My son is 8.5 now. And I come with my wife's parents often, and my wife's aunt, uncle, other friends, both of ours, and also like friends from the New York music like concert going scene, and like trying to balance the fact that I'm a big extrovert that actually does like doing stuff with people with the no, I don't give a shit that you don't want to go see that. I'm going right now to Fado and I don't care, and like trying to balance those things. I think the thing about my fests as I've gotten on is trying to like the other balance is making sure I see the old favorites and some of the old favorites because you can't see everything with trying to find new stuff that I've never heard before. And I think like one of the things that's amazing about Jazz Fest is like both the local New Orleans scene is continually unearthing new talent, and got to give it to Quint that he does do some work of occasionally bringing in some really interesting folks that I've never gotten to hear before until I got to the fairgrounds. And it's like I'm telling everybody still about that 2019 War and Treaty set, like there's some really amazing days and hours and minutes in the fairgrounds, and of course out late at night. I love talking about this stuff and connecting with friends about it. So glad to be here.
Love it. And next we have Mark Rosenswag. Mark is a music fan in New Orleans who started, I kind of feel like I'm insulting everyone by introducing Mark Rosenswag, but I'm going to go for it anyhow. Who started and maintains a Jazz Fest information website called Swagland. It's like the place for everything. He's at the Cube Rescues. He's like on top of the news as soon as it comes out. He's on top of the news before it comes out. He's widely known as an authority on Jazz Fest. Mark has really broad music tastes too. So he's not just an authority on Jazz Fest, but he's a curious listener. So he's a good guy to talk music with as well. So Mark, tell us about your fest philosophy.
Can I just add something to
Yeah.
that? When you get to the point when you're known by just one syllable and one name, like Cher or
Cher,
Pele,
yeah.
well, Pele is 2 syllables, but you get the idea. Just one word, one name. It's just
Prince.
swag. Prince, yeah. Swag is the Jazz Fest.
How does Swag Jazz Fest?
Whoop,
Oh.
you're muted.
I am muted. No, I'm not.
He was so overwhelmed that he couldn't speak.
Yeah, I've been jazz festing since 1996, and it's changed for me a bit over the years. After I came to my first 2 or 3 or 4 jazz fests, you started to get familiar with a lot of the local bands, and so for my first 2 decades of jazz festing, when I come to New Orleans, along with some of the favorite big name acts, I would seek out my favorite local bands. But I was fortunate enough in 2016 that I was able to move to New Orleans. And I still have my local favorites, but so many of them I can see on a regular basis here. So, no disrespect to someone like Big Sam, but I'm not going to catch his set at Jazz Fest because it's easy enough for me to catch him someplace else. And there's so many other good choices out there. So these days I'm seeking out the big name acts, the local bands who don't play much, and then in particular some of the regional and out of country acts, the international bands they bring in. I found some of those have been my favorite moments of the last few years.
And Mark, I totally get that, but let me ask you a question. Like, one of the things I've seen Galactic 50 or 60 times, probably in concert at Tipitina's, when they come to New York, whatever. But I feel like their Jazz Fest sets are always special because they throw people in there. They have sit-ins, people that you wouldn't normally see on the stage. Does that ever change the way you look at that? Not seeing the local ones as much that you can see regularly?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you look for the bands that might be doing something special, or the bands that change things up. I mean, Galactic has gone through what, 7 or 8 lead singers, over the last few decades. So, even if you've seen their Jazz Fest set before, well, this year's Jazz Fest set, might be something completely different. And then there are other bands who, kind of, to the tried and true, and there's nothing wrong with that. But
Right. Kermit Ruffins is not going to
Yeah.
do anything revolutionary anymore. It's going to be more of the same.
All right. And now we've got my arch nemesis, Chris Joseph. I'm just kidding.
Because nothing says let's do 3 seasons of a podcast with somebody like them being your arch.
I also just took care of his house for a little while, so he must trust me.
I'm dreading this intro, but go ahead.
Well, it's a one-way trust, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Chris Joseph is also a music fan. He's one of the, I don't know how to put it, Chris, one of the early founders of this whole Threadhead situation.
I would say he's a Threadhead entrepreneur.
He was at the scene of the crime. He's an accomplished author. He's a know-it-all. He's a survivor of stage
He's a real asshole.
He's a survivor of
Gonna go back and edit some of this, Nicole.
Yeah.
And he's my good friend, and he dragged me into this. So, Chris, tell us what kind of fester you are.
So I started going to Jazz Fest in 1988. I missed 1989, but then I was there every year until 2017. I was in Germany for cancer treatment in 2017, came back in 2018, 2019. There was no fest in 20 or 21, of course. But sadly, I missed last year because of some family issues. So I'm coming back from my first Jazz Fest in a couple of weeks, my first one since 2019, which is just so thrilling. I am, what were the terms? Grazer? Is that what you said?
For me, it's a grazer or like a setup
Camper.
camp kind of person.
Well, I'm definitely not a setup camp. Can I be a sniffer? Is that like
Yeah,
the same
sure.
thing as? Yeah, I'm gonna call myself a sniffer. More a grazer. I mean, I could intend on seeing John Hyatt at Fade Odo and walk by some other stage and hear something I like and say, well, no, I love John Hyatt, but I'll see him another time. I kind of go where I feel like going.
Mm.
And most of the time I travel solo. Most of the time. Susie's coming in for a couple days first weekend. My younger son's coming in for a couple days second weekend, but I'll have some days on my own. And I hope they don't listen to this, but I'll enjoy the days on my own just as much as I'll enjoy the days that they're with me. I got that right at the end, didn't I, Russ?
Yeah, you stuck the landing.
I saved myself. One other thing. So I was at that War and Treaty set back in 2019. It was great. Really, really great. Magical. I saw them last year here in Los Angeles, and they were good, but they weren't great. And I thought, it's interesting. Is there something about being on the Jazz Fest stage that makes something good just magical? And I think the answer is yes. I really do.
See, I don't want to go too far down this because I was at that set also, and it didn't work for me.
Okay.
It takes all kinds.
Yeah,
it does.
I would also say I've seen them recently, and their new album is less emotional than their first album.
Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was the material wasn't as good.
Well, and I do think to your first point, I think it's not just that a good set of Jazz Fest is magical, but I think it also goes to a little bit of what Jordan is saying. It's like there are bands like Galactic that I've seen 50 or 60 times, but I will make it my business to try to catch some of their set if it's my weekend, because the people, I think, bring it. Like, people are like, this is what's bigger than this, right? Like, what's better than this? And it's just like, I think there are folks that they really push hard. They know that Jazz Fest is the space that it is, and they bring a lot of energy.
Yeah, and Russ, I would also say that there's a part of me that they're people I first started seeing at Jazz Fest, the Rebirth Brass Band, Kermit Ruffins, Marsha Ball, those kind of people who kind of were the gateway drugs to Jazz Fest for me. And I kind of have moved on from some of them because some of their acts I've seen them, they're a little stale, like Mark has mentioned before. But I also, at the more fests I've been to, the more I feel like some of those people are family, and I kind of have to go see them. How can I not see Fofele? I saw them when they were like 12, like growing up on stage. It's just fun to see them every year. Alice McMurray stayed at my house. How can I not go watch his set in the
Right.
Rhythmporium set? You
Yeah.
know, so it's a combination of looking for new things, which is what really turns me on the most musically, and also being with family.
Yeah.
For sure.
Families
I got
of
to meet
jazz fest.
I got to meet Monk in the parking lot of the old Brooklyn Bowl, my first jazz fest. I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting a big chief. I'm meeting the big chief, one of
Right.
the big chiefs. And so like every time he's another one, like it feels like he probably has no idea who the hell this fat kid from New York is, but
Right.
every time I gotta try to see him. Also because he's still amazing. I want to give the elders of this world their flowers while they're here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have one more to introduce, no?
That's
So
me.
Nicole, can I introduce you?
Oh God, go ahead.
I do want to say one other thing about me, because we were talking about me. I am moving to New Orleans in December. Some of you know that. Some
I
of
did
you do
not know
not.
that.
Yeah, in
I
December.
knew it, but not the timeline. Mazel tov.
Thank you. I bought a house there, which Nicole has spent more time there than I have. But
It's true.
yeah, in December. So Nicole, what can I make up about you? You started performing at Jazz Fest in 1975.
Right.
Why
on the
it's called Marshall Ball Long Tall, right?
Yeah.
on the jazz stage. When did you started coming in 2000?
Well,
What?
I can't figure it out.
We're going to say 2005. Is that
I
fair?
don't know. Probably
Okay.
not, but sometime in that time frame.
Okay. So you started going to Jazz Fest in 2005. You have not missed one since, other than the ones that were canceled that we all
Right.
missed. You are a passionate music fan who travels around to see other festivals around the country. What else can we say about Nicole? Good human. As much as I tease her, she's a good human.
She's also one of the most organized, but like she's the funniest combination of uptight and laid back I've ever met. Like, somehow she is able to mix those two things together, and it's not weird.
It's
Really impressive.
It's been a journey. It's been a journey, and I appreciate that. It's a little bit of I totally know what you mean, though. I really do. Because yeah. I'm not really sure, and I should figure this out exactly when I start going to Jazz Fest, but I'm a rookie, a little bit like the way Russ is. We're both kind of the same vintage of Jazz Fest attendees. I would say that I share a bit of what everybody has already said. I'm a grazer. I'm a little bit of a camper, though. Like, if the vibe is good and my friends are having a good time, we're staying put. I started going to Jazz Fest with others. Then for a big period of time, it was really my solo thing, and that's kind of important to me still. Even though I have, like, my partner Chris loves Jazz Fest. He doesn't do the whole thing. He comes for a few days. We have our buddy Dave. He's like essential part of the three of us, the crew, going. It's awesome. But it's still a place that, like, I feel very rooted in as an individual. And that's really special to me because, I sometimes really love, like, I love being at that same stage, that same ground that I've heard great music at again, like in the past, right? Like, I'm a very rooted to place person, right? Rooted to my senses and like the significance of where I'm at. And for me, the grounds of Jazz Fest offer that to me every year and help me. I just feel like my best self when I'm there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get to do what I really love. I have the freedom to do it. I get to listen to what I really enjoy, and I just always leave feeling satisfied and happy, unless there's like a crush of a crowd, right? That's the only time I'm really unhappy. So I'm a blend of everything that everybody just said. And in terms of what I listen to, I'm truly a grazer in terms of sound. I'm just a curious music listener. Like, there's only one day where I put a line through an entire stage, and that's unusual for me. And I won't tell you what day it is or what stage it is. We're finally going to get to it. Should we talk about the lineup and the cues?
Let's go first weekend, Friday, April 28th. What you got, people?
So for first Friday, just jumping right to the end, that last time slot is ridiculous.
Bonkers.
Than you typically get on a second Sunday, a sacred Sunday for me, with Lizzo and Robert Plant and Wu-Tang playing with the Soul Rebels and Mavis Staples all at the same time. That's for me, that's brutal. I don't know how, but
And for me, Nicholas Payton and Mono Neon is also crazy on that.
And hearing Craig talk about Lucian is gonna, I'm sure, be fantastic too. Like,
yeah, that's true. I forgot about that one too. You're right.
So what do you do when you have 4 or 5 conflicts? Do you guys stay at one stage, or are you going to bounce around?
I'll plan to catch at least 2, but like you say, you don't want to leave something great, and you may end up stuck at one place. And I may also let some logistics decide for me if if the Blues tent is shoulder to shoulder for Mavis. I'll skip that. I think Congo Square for Wu-Tang may also be crazy crowded. So
let me just add a little fuel to that fire, which is to say, I caught some of the Soul Rebels with Nicole's neighbor Tariq Trotter sitting in at the Brooklyn Bowl, and they sounded good. They're ready to do this set. I think they did a whole lot of. They've always been great with hip hop instrumentals. They were really just on it with the roots feel, and I think with Wu-Tang, that's going to be like all of those sets. I think have the potential to be amazing. I think that one's going to be really great.
Yeah, that Wu-Tang was originally with the Soul Rebels. That was either a 2020 or a 2021 set.
Yeah,
went by the wayside with the cancellations from the pandemic, and they couldn't get it rescheduled for last year. So it's 2 or 3 years in the making.
Yeah, and I would say normally I would try to start with Lizzo because she starts first, and then head over to Wu-Tang, and then probably get stuck at Mavis. But the problem is Allison Russell ends at 5:35, and I can't see myself tearing myself away from her.
Yeah.
So I'll probably be there for that whole set, and then I might have to just skip Lizzo and just do Wu-Tang, and then I can't see myself not finishing with Mavis. I feel like I owe Mavis a lot, politically, musically, socially. Yeah.
I think Mavis is a must as well. I echo what Swag said. I am worried about the Blues tent being just jam packed with people, and I tend not to bother too much these days when places are jam packed like that.
But it wasn't bad. I mean, I think the fact that we think that Wu-Tang's going to be packed, Lizzo's going to be packed, Mavis is going to be. They can't all 3 be packed.
Right.
it's a rough. Go ahead, Nicole.
My plan is pretty straightforward. Well, if I stick to it, I too plan to be at Allison Russell for at least most of the set, if not all of it, and definitely towards the end. It's easy for me to then hop from Fado over to Congo Square to get started with Wu-Tang and then see what happens. I would like to finish at Lizzo. I love Robert Plant and Alison Krauss, but I would see them on tour. That's a full set I'd be happy to go see on tour. So they're like crossed out for me. I know the Blues tent is not going to be a place I want to be, so I'm sorry to Mavis, appreciate her, love her, but I probably won't even try.
Yeah. And I also say Mono Neon is playing a couple night shows, so I'll go see him then. And he might not be with Nicholas Payton, but he's crazy enough to carry it by himself anyway.
Yeah.
So what are 2 or 3 other favorite sets that you've circled for that day that you are absolutely know you're gonna see?
Well, for me, I'm going to start with Motel Radio, go to the Seratones after that because I really like the Seratones a lot. I'd like to see what they're doing now, and I will try to catch as much as Gino Delafos as I can. He's really my favorite Zydeco act.
So good.
He's the best to dance to. He's the nicest, warmest human being there is, even though I've never spoken to him. You can just feel it from the bandstand. I want to see a little bit of the Pinettes. And if I can catch one interview this Jazz Fest, it will be the Allison Russell interview, because I just find that she is so eloquent and so modest, and about society, about race, about music, about her last album, which is all about how she was abused, and really personal. And I liked them a lot when they were British Chicago. I can't see myself not seeing that as well. And then, those are the ones I'm definitely going to see: Gino, Allison Russell, Mavis Staples. If you had to make me only see 3 shows, it would be those. And the Serotones is easy because it's early.
For me, it's easy on paper right now. I think I would like to start the day whatever sounds good, graze a little. I miss the interview tent or interview stage a whole lot, so I'm thinking I might want to get there for the first one on its return, to hear the 79ers gang interview, like to hear
Yeah.
that. I don't think I'm gonna be able to catch them later in the day, so that might be my opportunity to catch a tune. Helen Gillet is going to be on the Lanyap stage basically at the same time. That's very convenient for me. I can just kind of dip into both. And then I am excited to hear Basiku Kayete, who is from Mali and plays the, can I say it right? Ngonya? Does anybody know how to pronounce it better than I do?
Sounds right to me.
All right, cool, which is a lute. And so I am looking forward to catching him in the Cultural Pavilion. And then I really want to hear Dragon Smoke because they've never been at the fairgrounds before, to the best of my knowledge. And then it's my plan for the rest of the day. We've already gone over Allison Russell. Onward.
By the way, I just want to point out that the last thing we did, when the wrap up of like who we wanted to see next year at Jazz Fest, we went around the room and with the same group and said who you'd want to see. My pick was Allison Russell, so Quint listens.
Well, we know he listens to this podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So Basiku Kuyate is someone who I had not heard of an hour and a half ago, but just before this call, someone posted a strong recommendation for them on the Jazz Fest board. And as I say, I always enjoy the international stuff I hear. So I went ahead and highlighted that. And this is a good time to point out that, especially for a lot of the international acts, they often do 2 sets. So he's playing Jazz and Heritage later in the day, but he is playing the Pavilion early in the day when there may be fewer conflicts. So I'll probably try to catch him there. And the other must see for me, and it's a must see every year, is Jermaine Basil in the Jazz Tent.
Yeah,
Love her. She's she's a local band, but she's not gigging as much locally as she used to. She's just celebrated her birthday, I want to say 92. But always enjoyed that set, and don't want to miss that one either.
Well, in addition,
go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, in addition to all the great picks I've heard so far, I'm going to add 2 more. I always try to get to Economy Hall Tent at least once a day because it's just so fun. And my pick for that day is Leroy Jones, who I thoroughly enjoy. And Jordan, I'm going to echo what you said earlier about seeing some of the acts. They're like family to you. So, of course, I'm going to see Paul Sanchez on the Gentili stage because Paul's my partner in crime on some projects we're working on and always puts on a good show. And I highly recommend that to people who have never heard him.
Yeah. And as Nicole said, 79ers gang is really, I think, what it sounds to me like what the Mardi Gras Indians bands are going to evolve into. And then Doreen's, Jazz New Orleans. Doreen Kirchin has been playing forever on the streets of New Orleans, and she's worth seeing. And the other one that I have to see, like for me, family, is David and Rosalind. David and Rosalind, old time street buskers, interracial couple when that was really, really, really hard. They're both going through some Alzheimer's issues right now. And Arlie Leonard, who's their daughter, kind of helps them around. And I'm going to go say goodbye to David and Rosalind and in the kids' tent at 3:00.
Noted. Thank you. One last note. So I'm going to be bummed because I don't think I'm going to be able to make it for Craig Klein's musical conversations on Lucian.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that OZ will probably broadcast it and we can go back in the archive and listen to it. I hope.
Yeah, that's often a factor for me when I'm stuck. I really don't know what to do, is thinking, oh, if it's in the jazz tent or economy hall, there's like a not zero chance it'll be recorded. Speaking of the jazz tent, a very brief word. It is very often, and I'm sometimes one of those people who maligns the sort of some of the choices, who has gotten to be there, that it's very hyper local focused and not a ton of, for something called Jazz Fest, not a ton of the international talent. I just want to say that this day is one of the days that is like I'm not a camper, but I could see camping at the jazz tent this day. Starting with Max Moran, who's a fantastic bassist in a variety of styles. You got Jason Marsalis, you got Jermaine Basil, and then you got this insane band before Nicholas Payton. Vincent Herring, James Carter. James Carter sat in the opening night with Galactic, and he absolutely, like, nobody knew what was coming for them. I've told friends, he's sort of like if the Harlem Globetrotters were one dude playing saxophone, that would be James Carter. But this band is bonkers from top to bottom. Vincent Herring, Randy Brecker, Lewis Nash. That's going to be incredible. So just a very brief kind word about the jazz tent on opening Friday.
Yeah. And then just for people who aren't used to it, like, I find that in the beginning of the day, it's really easy to hit lots of stages. Like, if you're there at 11, you can see 4 stages. It's easy to split. There's no one on the fairgrounds.
Yep.
At the end of the day, you have to make the harder choices. But the beginning, middle of the day, so like, there's a middle swath where I'm hoping to see the Pinettes, Doreen's Jazz New Orleans, a little bit of Steve Riley, some of the John Roniger, who I haven't seen,
right,
and then make it over to the interview. I can do all of that because it won't be crowded yet.
Yeah. Guys, it's really funny that we thought we'd be able to get through the entire 2 weeks.
So we're out of time,
Only one
right?
of us thought that, Nicole. That was you.
Yeah, I think it was only you. Before we go to Saturday, what advice would you give to fans who have never attended Jazz Fest before? What one piece of advice?
I mean, I have people coming second weekend that have never been, and this is not like really super exciting advice, but it's the shoes. I mean, I told them the first thing they really need to care about is what shoes they wear, because first of all, I don't want them whining because they wore the wrong shoes, right? And the right shoes will depend on what the conditions are, but they're probably a really comfortable sandal, right, or a sneaker. I mean, honestly, that's my unsexy advice.
Good advice.
Yeah.
I guess I have 2. One is never leave good music for potentially good music. Like the band that Russ pointed out in the jazz tent sounds amazing, but if you happen to be somewhere where you're seeing, where you're totally in love with Dragon Smoke, for example, right, and you're enjoying it, don't go, because there's nothing worse than going, finding out that, oh, it's not as good as I thought it was, and wishing you were back at Dragon Smoke. That'd be the first thing. And the second thing I would say is, don't be glued to your plan, if you even have one. You just go with it. I mean, I would tell people, when I bring people for the first time, I say, the first day, you just follow me. Just stick with me, and then for half the day. And then after that, do whatever you want. But that'll give you a sense of what it's like, how it all runs. And then after that, just roam around, and if you're the kind of person that wants to go to the craft show, and do that, try the food, but I would say, if you have the ability to not wait in lines, I always try not to do that. I won't go to food if there's a big line. I'll go to a different food. I never wait in a Porta-John line anymore. You just figure out other places,
a bag or something, and
no, you just know that there aren't going to be lines over by Fade Odo, and I'm going over there in 5 minutes, so that's fun. Anyway, how about you, Russ?
For first timers, I just say, try new stuff. Yeah. Right? If you got a few minutes, and you want to talk to me about what you are curious about, I'm happy to give some suggestions if you tell me what you like. But There's so much good stuff that you don't even know that you're gonna love here. And it, yes, there are 3 different jazz stages, but they're all very different and they're all amazing. And there's also a bunch of other incredible stuff. Just like check it out. Be open to the new stuff. Don't just go and be like, I'm only going to see this thing.
Yeah, I would actually say if you highlighted randomly which bands you were going to go see, just totally randomly, without even looking at the page, you would still have an amazing jazz fest.
Definitely.
How about you, Swag?
Yeah, I mean, you all took the good ones, the comfortable shoes, and don't leave something great. And I mean, I kind of echo just what we were talking about, to especially if you're going to be there not just for a day, but for the whole weekend, to make sure you kind of explore everything. So spend some time in the gospel tent, spend some time in the Jazz and Heritage stage, spend some time at Fade Odo, spend some time in the Economy Hall. These are going to be very different experiences than you get at any other music festival, back in your hometown. Experience that. Make sure you catch one of the parades that wanders through the fairgrounds.
Yeah.
Catch something on an interview stage, and just try to don't yeah, you came to see Lizzo and you want to see Lizzo and you set your chair up, but you don't camp out there all day. You spend some time around and see what else the festival has to offer.
Yeah, I'm going to echo all that. I'll say it a different way. Enter with curiosity, travel with curiosity, rather than with certainty.
Yeah.
Because that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
All right, Saturday.
Saturday. Who's leading off?
Not me.
I want to know what y'all are going to do at 4:35 p.m.
Oh, that was my talking point for this day.
What are you going to do when you've got Angelique Kidjo, the Campbell brothers, Catherine Russell, Taj Mahal, and Irma's gospel set all happening at the same time?
And Pat McLaughlin, who's really
And Pat
good.
McLaughlin,
And Maggie Kerner.
and the Lawrence Seaworth Collective. Osnoy, also not a joke to be slept on. What are y'all doing? Since I'm not going to be there, I'm dying to know how y'all are making those choices.
Campbell brothers.
Cloning myself.
Both good answers.
Yeah.
No, the Campbell brothers play never.
It's true.
Right.
And they lost one of them, so and Chuck is amazing. They're just like the level of their music ascends in ways that I don't know a lot of other bands that do. So I'll go see them, and everything else I can fit in, I will. But it means I'm not going to see Maggie Kerner at that time. I'll see her earlier in the day. It means that Taj Mahal I've seen a lot of times, so that's fine. Catherine Russell's here all the time in New York, so I'm okay with that. Angelique Kidjo, that hurts, but it doesn't hurt if you're watching the Campbell brothers, in my mind.
My thinking is
that Maggie also had a second set in that time slot, so he just made things a bit harder for me. But
sorry.
I think so. I've got to start with Samantha Fish and Jesse Dayton, because at my very first Jazz Fest in 1996, I remember wandering by the Fade Odo stage and seeing a young Jesse Dayton play there early in the day, never having heard of him and very much enjoying his set. And 27 years later, I don't think I've seen him live since.
Right.
And he's playing. He's been on tour with Samantha Fish, and they're bringing their set to Jazz Fest. So I have to see at least part of that, and then I probably got to go from there and then head over to the Campbell brothers.
I want to comment on Jesse Dayton real quick. I that's not a set that I need to be at, but I saw Jesse a couple years ago in Nashville during Americana Fest, and man, he was awesome. I mean, the place was bonkers. He just inspired the best rough house blues party. So I think that's if that's your lane, go there. That's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know what I'm going to do at 4:30. I don't know.
The other one you mentioned earlier was the gospel solo Irma Thomas, and if you've ever seen Irma do her gospel set, it's phenomenal, and it's such a different show than she puts on her regular festival set that you catch it when she plays other places. I mean, that's you probably got to get there 2 hours early to get into the gospel tent because that's a tiny tent and it's going to be so crowded that
Yeah,
as much as I would enjoy that set, I don't think I'm going to bother.
I'm
I would say
curious. I'm curious, guys. No one has talked about any conflicts at the 5 and 5:30 sets.
Well, Nicole took us right to the end, right?
Well, I did the 4:30. I posted
Yeah.
4:30 question.
Yeah.
I take some blame for that. I
Well,
want to say that my answer would actually probably be a mix of Irma and Angelique Kidjo. That I love Irma's like main stage set, but that gospel set, man.
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Back to Chris's question.
Well, hold on. Before we go back to that, I wanted to mention that I have marked the Campbell Brothers interview with Nick Spitzer at 1 o'clock that afternoon. Puts me in at the interview stage while and Panorama's on at Lagniappe, and I like that duo. That sounds really good. So I might try to catch them there and then get a song or two of their main set and then hit the road for Angelica Kidjo. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, Nicole, I would love that, except that means I'm missing Maggie Kerner and Mia Borders,
Right.
who it already pains me to have to split those two sets, but I'm going to split those two sets. And
It's a tough day.
yeah, it is a tough day.
I'm going to piggyback on what Swag said about getting to Irma and how difficult that might be. But I think if you get there before the previous set, which is the Johnson extension, you could probably find a seat or two at what time is that? 2 something?
Yeah.
And then you'd be just staying there for Irma and you'd be fine. But getting there right before Irma starts is not that won't happen.
No.
Right. You could get there 3/4 of the way through her set and squeeze your way in and find something and catch the last quarter. But even that's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
I would say you might even be able to get in if you got there at 3:30. Right, the last 5-10 minutes of that extension.
But you got to be ready to go. You got to
Yeah.
be ready to grab that seat immediately.
Yeah.
And that's where it pays off to be solo or with just one other person. If you've got a
Totally.
whole posse with you, there's just no way. It's just
Oh,
not going
right.
to happen.
Hey Russ, can you save us 10 seats at John Butte?
The other one, the other couple, the Zion Harmonizers, if people haven't
Mhm.
seen them, they're totally worth it.
So good.
Sweet Crude is kind of fun.
I think so too.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do this year. They have their lineup is slightly different. The Leo Nocentelli set last year, I didn't go. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. I trust both of those people who, on both sides. So I might have to just go see myself.
I'm
And
curious which set he's going to do this year.
Right.
yeah.
It was the folk set from the Lost album that had just been released. But for 2 decades before that, when you saw Leo Nocentelli, you were getting his funk set.
Right.
I'm kind of assuming this is going to be the funk set again, especially being billed as of the meters.
Of the meters, yeah.
Who knows?
I want to throw out one other early set since you brought up design harmonizers, because that was actually another tough conflict I was looking at, is what time would I leave Wendell Brunius to get to some of the Zion harmonizers? Wendell's he's an incredible showman, a great trumpet player and singer. Just always puts on a hell of a set and is not somebody that comes up New York way very frequently. So I often try to get to see him.
Do people know Mia Borders, or is it just me who loves her so much?
Oh no, I dig her too.
Yeah. I feel like I have the
Great.
opportunity to catch her though.
Where?
I feel like she usually when I'm in town, I see her playing out.
Huh.
Yeah.
I feel like I look at I rarely see her playing out, but so that I always have to catch her at jazz.
I could be wrong, very much so.
And then Cedric Watson. Oh, go ahead. Swag, you would know the best.
I was gonna say Mia's actually got a headline set at Wednesday at the Square Series this year, which seems like a nice big jump up for her. And I think that will be tomorrow.
Cool. And then the Revivalists, I don't feel like you could ever go wrong with the Revivalists or with Cedric Watson. He's so danceable. the Revivalist. David Shaw has so much energy. That whole band has gotten so big. I hope that that stage isn't packed for the Ed Sheeran people, and I'll get to run in there for the Revivalists and bounce out for the Campbell Brothers.
So I want to give a recommendation for the Desert Nudes. That's
Oh yeah,
nice Americana, more Americana leaning styling group in New Orleans right now. Andre Barnes with them, some other guys who I'm not thinking of right now. I really
Tell our listeners when that is and where.
So it's in the AARP Rhythmporium at 2:50 p.m. Which I am sort of like on the fence about, but I might try to catch them at night. And if I am able to, then I will probably skip that. But I want to point that out for everyone. I also just really enjoy catching sets in that Rhythmporium, as long as it's not jam-packed full of people trying to escape the heat or the rain or whatever. It's a really nice, pleasant place to chill out for a little while.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
See,
by far the tiniest performance space.
Without a doubt.
And when
Yeah.
when they first rolled it out, it kind of before the pandemic, it seemed like really no one knew about it.
Yeah.
Pop in there and catch this really intimate acoustic set from some of these, some cases some of the same performers who were on the big stages another time that day. And boy, it seemed like last year every time I went by there it was shoulder to shoulder.
Madness. Yeah.
It was. And there were times where I went by and people were sitting on the ground in it, which is fine, right? But it was like packed full of people sitting on the ground, which I don't know. That seemed like a violation of some fire code.
Yeah. And if you're doing that, then you're not far from the Lagniappe stage in Dave Jordan and the Neighborhood Improvement Association. And that's always a fun set.
That's a good point. And of course, I look forward to starting the day setting the vibes right with Johnny Sketch and the Dirty Notes. They're just going to completely rock on Gentilly walking in that day on Saturday morning.
I think I might check out Deke Heap, but then maybe make it over to Johnny Sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I get to the fairgrounds, if I get through the gates that early, I'll be making the right turn towards Gentilly for Sketch for sure.
So I
Right.
feel like we're
A while
also
ago about the
avoiding-
closing
go ahead,
set.
sorry.
Someone asked a while ago about the closing set, and we haven't talked about it yet.
That's what I was about to say. We haven't talked about the closing set, and that's very curious.
Who I have highlighted is Christopher Kingfish Ingram. I've never seen. I've heard a lot of great buzz about him. He's been a couple of festivals he was supposed to play at where I was supposed to catch him, and they got pandemic. So this will finally be my chance, and that's the one I'm looking forward to.
Couldn't agree more, Swag. And a lot of people I know like Corey Wong. I haven't liked what I've heard online, but I'll maybe check him out first because he's a couple minutes before Ingram. And Jazz Blues 10 is an easy one too.
Yeah.
And then I'll stay with Chris Tone as long as I love him. And if I don't love him, I'll finish with Sun Pie. Because that's also family, and you can't go wrong with him.
I mean, best former NFL player turned, Paul Simon sit-in, right? Like he's family for sure. Like the way you described, I might actually park. I mean, I love Kingfish, but I might, if I was there, I might actually just go to Fedodo and just close out the day there 6 to 7. He puts on such a great set every time.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're focusing on first weekend, but I will point out Sun Pie has a second set at the festival on, I want to say, Thursday in the kids tent.
It is already circled.
So there is another opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank God. It would be sad if I missed him for a year.
I'm kind of grateful for it. I'm not really like super pulled anywhere for closing set on Saturday. I'm really picking up on the Sun Pie idea because I also love Sun Pie. I might want to swing by to hear a little of Jasmine Sullivan. She is a Philly girl. I am a Philly girl. There's Philly all over the lineup this year, which I'm so about. So I might stop by to hear a little bit of Jasmine. And my buddy Dave, who's my running partner that day, is going to demand that I come hang out at Steve Miller Band for a little while, and that sounds like a fun party. So I'll be a part of it for a little while.
Steve Miller will be good. I mean, it's like comfort food for the
Yeah,
boomers, right? I mean,
yeah. I would drink a beer and dance to Steve Miller. That sounds awesome.
If we were there first weekend, Marissa would be like, "You have to come with me for some of Steve Miller."
I've always liked Marissa. She's very wise. Yeah.
Sure.
all right. Are we're all showered and ready to go back to Jazz Fest on Sunday. Who are our Sunday picks?
I like Russ. You talked about picking a stage to camp out at. If I had to camp out a stage, it could either be the festival stage. Iceman Special is fantastic. Dumpster Funk is better at Jazz Fest than anywhere else because they have the horn section. They have lots of stuff going on.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going. I don't know the Puerto Rican bands, but that one in the middle could be amazing. Gary Clark Jr. is bringing everything to a new level. Tedeschi Trucks, just to hear Mike Madison sing is worth it for me. In that band, but Lanyap stage also is packed that day. That's Guitar Masters, Christian Diable, Andrew Duhon, so much over there, and the other two that Cyril Neville, Kenny Neal, Preservation Brass, Honey Island Swamp Band, and I will definitely finish the day somehow with the Midnight Disturbers.
Well, if there wasn't so many other great things on the schedule, I would say that it could be somebody could make the case to camp at Jazz and Heritage. Fai, Bill Summers, Monk, and the Disturbers. That's a hell of a day right there.
Yeah.
The two sets that I'm most sad to be missing in first weekend are in fact this day, which is a Charlie Gabriel and Roger Lewis set, and the Sidney Bechet tribute with the Big Chief Donald Harrison, Aurora Nealand, and Dr. Michael White. Those two sets, they're just going to be so good.
Aurora is just magic.
I want to put in a shout out to my homeboys, Los Lobos. From East Los Angeles. They are so great. Truly, to me, one of the all-time great bands.
Yes,
and always put on a great show.
And it's great that they've been at Fadodo the last couple of years. Their last blues tent set was epic, but it was also just like blues tenty.
Yeah.
And I've loved their sets at Fadodo. That is a fantastic call. I'm the real Nicole Snyder.
It's so confusing. Thank you for taking down my name, which was very unflattering. So I think, Russ, you're right. The Charlie Gabriel, Roger Lewis set is obviously going to be special, but then getting your seat and staying in place for the Jordan family tribute to Kid Jordan, I think is going to be very special as well.
Oh, that's going to be great too, for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be really great and a really special moment for the jazz tent. I also have going to hear Monk on my schedule, and I will be at Midnight Disturbers because I'm just not. This is another one where I'm not like completely like wedded to one of the closers that day. I'm gonna see Tedeschi Trucks at Red Rocks this summer with a bunch of my girlfriends, so if I can catch a little bit of them, of course that's awesome. Always lucky to be able to, but not a priority like it would have been if I weren't. Jill Scott, another Philly girl. We got a lot of Philly girls closing out this weekend, so I might swing by to hear a little bit of Jill Scott and give her some appreciation, but Midnight Disturbers are it for me. Earlier in the day, last year I had to leave Lost Bayou Ramblers because it was like really like a scorching hot moment at Fadodo. I'm hoping that I can find it in me to hang for that this year. I'm going to plan to see Andrew Duhon later that day or later that evening at Carrollton Station. So that'll help me navigate those conflicts. And then I also want to point out one interview that day. The interview that is starting the day, the interview stage, is the interviewer Scott Billington, another friend of the podcast, as is Andrew Duhon. But Scott Billington was on the podcast last year discussing his book, and he's going to be interviewing members of the Williams family including Nathan and Lil Nathan and others. So I think that might be a special one to catch.
As I mentioned a few minutes ago, I always try to get to the Economy Hall tent, and my pick for Sunday, April 30th is the first act, New Leviathan
Oh, yes.
Oriental Foxtrot Orchestra. They are just so fun.
Mhm.
So fun. And would also, I've got circled on my cubes, the Creole String Beans at Fado Do in the 12 o'clock hour, because they're just fun.
Mhm.
Just fun.
The two bands that I mean, I've seen Iceman Special a lot out. I don't think they've ever played the fest before. Is this their first year?
Who is that?
Iceman Special?
I think it is their first year.
So last year they were big, playing a lot of night shows. They're psychedelic rock.
Mhm.
Um,
They played the
but
Patry
heavy.
2 years ago, or a couple years ago.
Oh yeah. But they're like heavy psychedelic rock. They're really fun. I mean, it's a weird time for them. I'm sure most of them are still asleep at this time. And then Vegas Cola Band I had never seen before, and I still haven't seen. I'd like to check them out to see what they're about because they've been getting a lot of dates. Swag, I don't know if you've seen them already or what they're about, but maybe you would know.
Who is that?
Vegas Cola?
No, I
All right.
One other note for folks looking at the PDF is that the Preservation Brass set, which I'm sure is going to be fantastic, has the new generation, I think, Social Aid and Pleasure Club. So there'll be some real getting down second line and happening in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, when I look at Sunday, Tedeschi Trucks Band is one of my favorite touring acts going these days, and they skip New Orleans on their regular tour winter. So it's been a year and a half since I've seen them, so I'm sure I'm going to close with them. And I like Gary Clark as well, so I'll probably camp out for those two. I try not to miss Monk Boudreaux, but he's playing that night at DBA at the Funk and Chance show with Papa John Groves, so
Hard to beat that.
I'll catch him that day. The other one I'm really looking forward to this day is Madal Mokhtar, who played Jazz Fest 4 years ago, I forget, and
Yeah.
put on a really good set. So I'm looking forward to catching him. And he's another the blues tent later in the day, but you can catch him with perhaps fewer conflicts early in the day and the cultural.
Yeah, that's when I will see him too. In that early set.
If you'll allow me to step just outside the fairgrounds for a moment, this has just been announced, but on this Sunday, they are going to rededicate 40-Year Park, which is the little triangle park on Esplanade across from Canseco's, where you go to catch a bus or the taxi at the end of the festival. They're going to rededicate that as Wolfman Park in honor of the late, great Walter Wolfman Washington. That ceremony, I think, starts at 6. And part of that playing in the park are going to be the Roadmasters, Leo Nocentelli, Rockin' Dopsy, Deacon John, James Andrews, and many more. So it's a hard day to leave the festival early, but if you happen to get out of the gates a little bit early and you're heading towards the cab stand, there'll be a party going on right out there too.
Even if you leave at 7, you'll still catch some of that, I'm sure.
For sure.
Also, on Monday morning, there is a second line parade for Christopher Porsche West, a local artist in New Orleans who passed away maybe a week or two ago. And so for folks who may or may not know him, it's going to be a very moving thing, but also just to see what a real second line parade is like. And that's 10 or 11 o'clock on Monday morning.
Nice.
I feel like on Sunday, like Midnight Disturbers followed by walking out to the Wolfman tribute is a really good way to end your weekend spiritually.
So
I have to say, of
Go ahead.
all the days, this Sunday I have the most things highlighted of all 7 days.
So I have a question for you guys before we wrap up. So we always have to remember that we're going to get new listeners and or people who have never been to Jazz Fest before. One food that you would recommend, just one, for newcomers going to Jazz Fest.
Prejean's gumbo.
Jordan?
Joyce?
Mine would be the crawfish strudel. It's like a pastry. There's all kinds of goodness inside. There's some cheese in there. It's and crawfish, because we're in New Orleans.
I guess the Cachandale po' boy is somehow so much better than it should be.
Someone once told me that you can get that kind of without the bread also,
Yeah.
if you want to
You
do it
ask
that
for-
way,
Yeah, you just ask for it as the salad.
as
Give
a
you some
salad.
extra-
And
give you some extra cabbage. And, yeah.
yeah, that's a nice way to eat it too.
Nicole?
I'm just gonna say get an unsweet flavored iced tea. Get like an unsweet
Oh, yeah.
mint tea.
And I'm going to go with the trout from Little Dizzy's.
Oh yeah.
So there are two choices on the trout this year.
What are the choices?
So there's the old trout baquette, which was the crab meat topping, and then last year, because crab was so expensive, they had the trout dizzy, which had a shrimp and crawfish topping, and this year they'll be serving them both.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Choice to make.
So when we record the episode for second weekend, I'm going to ask the same question, and you have to pick a different food the next time.
Do I have to pick an actual food next time?
No.
No, just something that you can consume.
Cool.
I guess that's it, folks.
Yeah,
we
I
didn't
guess so.
highlight it a lot, but we did say it. The gospel tent is special. It's one of the things that makes Jazz Fest so special. Whenever I have nothing that I have to be at, I go there.
Yeah. I think there's like that quartet, right? There's the gospel tent, there's economy hall, there's Fado Dough and Jazz and Heritage. To me, those four are they're the essence.
Mm,
You can't go wrong. Yeah.
And if you need shade for the new people, Interview Tent is air conditioned, right? It's inside. It will cool you down. Lanyap has beautiful shade and breezes. The bigger tents like gospel, blues, jazz, they get a little hot sometimes. Economy Hall too sometimes, but those other ones, are really nice places to be able to cool down a little bit and just get away from it all for a little bit.
yeah, I think that's a really good point. And actually, I was putting together like a little email of stuff for my friends that are coming for the first time. And, in terms of like health and wellness, I always tell people there's not a lot of shade, right? So you kind of have to bring your own, right? So that means you've got to have a hat on your head. I know Jordan doesn't wear a hat because he's superhuman and doesn't need one. But for most of us mortals, we need some sun protection and we need like a hat. I carry a shade umbrella anymore. I put it down when I'm in a crowd and it might block someone, but I spend a lot of time walking around, and creating that little bit of shade and cool down for myself really saves my energy for things I want to spend my energy on throughout the day. So I told my friends, pack like you're going to the beach. It's going to be hot. There's not going to be a lot of shade. Be prepared.
Stay hydrated.
Bring a lot of water. Yep.
And
The jazz tent has those misters, and I feel like doesn't get as crazy as the other big tents,
Yeah,
unless it's like somebody huge.
they all have those now.
they do.
No, I know, but I feel like the jazz tent, unless it's like Sonny Rollins or Herbie or something, like it doesn't get, or John Boutte,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't get super full, and I feel like that's the one that you get the most bang for your buck in terms of misters and breeze.
Oh yeah, got it.
Mhm.
And I bring my own mister. That's how I stay cool. It's not I'm superhuman. I just have my own spray bottle that I fill all the time.
I love that.
All right, folks.
All right.
This has been great.
I'm so excited to see you all in a month-ish.
Sooner for episode 2.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll connect with you offline to schedule episode 2.
All right. Thanks, everyone. This was really great. Hope
Have
everyone
fun,
had a-
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.